The world had ended long before the girl cried for help. The sky was no longer blue. It was gray and full of dust. Broken towers stood like dead bones under the cold wind. In the middle of the silence, a small sound rose, a weak cry, soft but painful. A little alien girl stumbled through the ruins. Her clothes were torn, her silver skin covered in dirt. In her thin arms, she held a baby wrapped in rags. The baby's lips were dry, her eyes half closed. The older sister's name was Lyra. She was starving, her legs shaking, but she kept walking. Every few steps, she looked at the broken bottle in her hand. It had once held milk. Now it was empty. "Please," she whispered to the wind, her voice trembling. "Please, someone help us." Her voice was carried by the dust until it reached the ears of a human soldier. Sergeant Kane was walking alone, helmet on, rifle slung over his shoulder. He was part of the peacekeeping force sent after the war between humans and the alien species called the Sithari. His team had left him behind to patrol the ruins. He thought the area was empty, until he heard that small, shaking voice. At first, he thought it was an echo or maybe just the wind. But then he saw her, a small figure kneeling beside a broken wall, clutching something in her arms. The sight froze him. She looked no older than 12. Her eyes, large and glowing faint blue, turned toward him in fear. The baby in her arms whimpered weakly. Kane stopped in his tracks. His training told him what to do. Do not approach enemy civilians. Report all sightings to command. But she didn't look like an enemy. She looked like a child lost in hell. "Stop right there," Kane shouted, raising his hand. "Identify yourself." The girl flinched. She tried to hide the baby under her thin cloak. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, just milk. My baby sister. She will die." Kane froze. The word milk hit something deep in his chest. He remembered his own daughter back home, tiny, laughing, holding a cup of milk before bedtime. That was before the bombs. Before the world turned into dust, he took a slow step forward. The girl didn't move. Her small hands shook as she held the baby closer. "I don't have milk," Kane said quietly, "but maybe I can find something." The girl blinked, not understanding. Her people didn't trust humans anymore. Humans had burned their cities, destroyed their ships. But there was something in his voice, soft, tired, human. "Why? Help?" she asked. Kane looked at her, then at the child's pale face. "Because no one helped mine," he said softly. He lowered his weapon and removed his gloves. He opened his ration pack and took out a sealed nutrient tube. It wasn't much, just survival paste for soldiers, but it could save a life. He walked toward her slowly, like someone approaching a scared animal. The girl didn't move. She just stared at him with wide eyes. When he kneeled in front of her, she could see the lines on his face, the tiredness in his eyes. He held out the tube. "Here," he said.
"Give this to her."
"Mix it with water if you can." The girl looked at it, then at him. You are human," she whispered. "Yes," Kane said. "And you're Sithari. But right now that doesn't matter." Her small hands reached out and took the tube. She tried to open it, but her fingers were weak. Kane helped her. Slowly, carefully, he squeezed the paste into the baby's mouth. The child made a small sound, then swallowed. Lyra gasped. Tears filled her eyes. She drinks," she said in disbelief. "She drinks." Kane looked away for a moment, pretending to check the horizon. He didn't want her to see his eyes. He knew this was against the rules. If command found out, he could be court-martialed. But as he watched the baby breathe easier, he knew he had done the right thing. He stood up. "You can't stay here. There are patrols coming. Come with me." The girl hesitated. "They will kill us," she whispered. "Not if I hide you," Kane said. "There's an old shelter nearby." For a long moment, the girl didn't move. Then slowly, she nodded. Kane led them through the ruins, stepping carefully between shadows. The baby slept in her arms again, her breathing calm. They reached an old bunker half buried under stone. Kane pulled open the rusty door and guided them inside. It was dark, cold, and quiet, but safe. As he turned on his flashlight, the girl looked around. "Is this your home?" she asked. Kane gave a small, tired smile. "No," he said. "Just a place where good people hide." The girl looked at him again, confused. "Why do you help us, human?" He looked at her, his face in the dim light. "Because I can," he said simply. "Because someone should." Outside, the wind howled through the ruins. The war might have ended, but kindness, real kindness, had just begun. and somewhere far above the gray clouds, the stars flickered faintly as if they too were listening to a starving girl's cry in the dust. Night covered the ruined city like a black blanket. The wind outside howled through broken windows, but inside the shelter the air was still. Kane sat near the cold wall, helmet off, staring at the two alien sisters. They slept close together, wrapped in an old military blanket. The baby's breathing was soft now, no longer the painful rasp from before. Lyra, the older one, held her protectively, even in her dreams. Kane should have felt relief. Instead, he felt fear. His communicator blinked red, an incoming signal from command. He hesitated, then pressed the button. "Sergeant Kane, report your patrol status," said a sharp voice through static. He swallowed. "Sector 6 is clear," he replied. "No hostiles detected," a pause. "Then copy that. Return to base for debriefing." Kane looked at the sleeping girls. His throat tightened. He couldn't go back, not yet. If he returned, they'd find out what he'd done. He turned the communicator off. The red light faded, leaving the bunker in quiet darkness. When morning came, pale light leaked through cracks in the ceiling. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. For a moment she looked confused, like she couldn't believe she was still alive. Then she saw the human sitting near the door cleaning his rifle. She tensed instantly. "Where are we?" she asked in a whisper. "Old supply shelter," Kane said. "Abandoned after the bombing. It's safe for now." Her eyes darted toward the weapon in his hands. "You're not going to hand us over?" Kane looked at her, his expression unreadable. "If I wanted to, I'd have done it last night." She said nothing. She just looked at him, trying to understand the strange creature who had saved her instead of killing her. Kane opened his pack and handed her a ration bar. "Eat," he said. She shook her head. "For my sister." "She can't eat solid food yet," Kane replied softly. "You can. You have to stay strong to protect her." For a moment she hesitated. Then she took the bar with shaking hands and bit into it. Tears filled her eyes as she chewed. It was dry and tasteless, but to her it was heaven. Kane watched silently. Something about this girl reminded him of his own child, the one he lost when the refugee transport was bombed. He didn't even know which side had done it. Maybe both. Maybe no one cared anymore. Suddenly, a faint humming sound echoed outside the bunker. Kane's instincts flared. He grabbed his helmet and looked through the narrow slit in the wall. A recon drone, silver and round, floated slowly through the ruins, its red scanner light sweeping the ground. "Quiet," he whispered sharply. He motioned for Lyra to stay still. The girl froze, clutching the baby tight. The drone drifted closer, its sensors blinking. One signal to command, and they'd all be finished. Kane picked up a small EMP grenade, his finger hovering over the trigger. But the blast would give away their position. He had to wait. Seconds stretched into minutes. The drone paused outside, scanning the bunker door. Kane held his breath, then finally the light turned away. The drone drifted off into the distance, vanishing behind the smoke. Only then did he exhale. Lyra looked at him, terrified. "They are looking for you," she said. "No," Kane said quietly. "They're looking for you." Her hands shook. "But why?" "The war is over." He gave a bitter smile. "Wars don't end just because people stop shooting. They end when someone forgives, and that hasn't happened yet." Later that day, Kane went scavenging through nearby ruins, searching for supplies. He found a half-crushed food crate and a few broken water filters. As he worked, he thought about what he was doing. Helping the enemy was a crime. If command found out, he'd be stripped of rank, imprisoned, or worse. But leaving them to die would make him less than human. When he returned, Lyra was sitting near the door, humming softly to her sister. The song was strange, alien, yet full of sorrow. It sounded like the sound of falling rain on glass, a sound long forgotten on this burned world. Kane placed the supplies down. "Found these," he said. "Might last a few days." Lyra looked at him with tired eyes. "You risk too much for us." "Maybe," he said, sitting down. "But I've already lost everything worth keeping." She frowned slightly. "You lost family?" Kane nodded. "A daughter. About your age." Lyra's eyes softened. "I'm sorry." He looked away. "Don't be, just live. That's apology enough." As night fell again, the sky outside burned red from far-off explosions. Somewhere, someone else was fighting another battle. Kane looked at the girls, safe for now. Then he opened his communicator again, hands trembling. He recorded a message, voice low. Command log. Civilian contact in Sector 6, non-hostile. 2 survivors, minors. Taking temporary custody for humanitarian reasons. He hesitated, then deleted it. He couldn't risk it. Instead, he whispered to the silent air. Maybe one day. This won't be forbidden. Lyra didn't understand his words, but she felt their weight. She turned to him and said softly, "Thank you, human." He didn't answer. He just sat there, staring into the dark. Knowing every second he helped them was one step closer to treason. Outside, the recon drone passed again, its red light blinking through the dust, proof that kindness in this world was the most dangerous act of all. Morning came like a ghost, pale and cold. The gray light crept through the cracks of the bunker, painting shadows on the walls. Kane hadn't slept. He sat with his back against the metal door, rifle beside him, eyes fixed on the horizon through a narrow slit. He had spent all night thinking about the girls, about his orders, about the weight of his silence. Every law, every command he'd sworn to follow told him to report them, but every beat of his heart told him not to. And now he was caught between both. The communicator on his wrist beeped suddenly, loud in the quiet air. He froze, then answered. "Sergeant Kane, report," said the familiar voice of his commander, Captain Rourke. "You didn't check in last night, explain." Kane cleared his throat. "Signal interference, sir. Dust storms in the sector." "Understood," Rourke said, but his tone was sharp. "We've had movement reports in your area. Possibly Sithari remnants. Sweep again. If you find any alien survivors, detain and report immediately. You know the protocol." Kane's hand clenched into a fist. "Understood, sir." "Good. We'll be sending a patrol your way to assist. 2 hours. The line went dead. Kane stared at the communicator for a long moment, his heartbeat loud in his ears. 2 hours. Then they'd be found. He turned quickly to the back of the bunker. "Lyra," he said quietly. "Wake up." The girl stirred, eyes half open. "What's wrong?" "Patrol's coming. We have to move." Her face turned pale. "They'll kill us," she whispered. "Not if they don't see you," Kane said, already packing his supplies. They stepped out into the ruins. The air was thick with dust. Kane led them through broken alleys and fallen towers. Every step echoed softly through the silence. The baby was awake again, eyes blinking weakly in the harsh light. Lyra held her close, whispering soothing words in her language. Kane didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. It reminded him of how his wife used to calm their daughter during storms. They reached a collapsed building, a factory from before the war. The roof had caved in, but the lower floors still held. Kane guided them inside. "You'll stay here until I come back," he said. Lyra looked up, frightened. "Where will you go?" He hesitated. "I have to meet the patrol. If I run, they'll suspect. If they suspect, they'll search this area." "That can't happen." Lyra grabbed his sleeve. "They will find out," she said. "Humans always find out." He looked at her trembling hands. "Then I'll make sure they find nothing." The patrol arrived exactly 2 hours later. 3 soldiers in gray armor, their helmets shining with command insignia. Kane stood waiting for them, rifle slung over his shoulder, expression calm. "Sergeant," the lead soldier said. "Command said you had movement near this zone." "False alarm," Kane lied smoothly. "Just wind-triggering old sensors. Nothing alive out here," the soldier frowned. "Command drones picked up faint heat signatures last night. Human or alien, we need to verify." "Could be rats," Kane said, forcing a laugh. The soldier didn't smile. "We'll check anyway." Kane's stomach dropped. "Negative," he said quickly. "There's radiation pockets nearby. I've already scanned that area." But the soldier ignored him and motioned to his team. They spread out, heading toward the direction of the collapsed factory. Kane's pulse spiked. "Wait," he said, stepping forward. "You'll contaminate the filters." "Let me stand down, Sergeant," the lead soldier snapped. Kane froze. The soldier's tone had changed, suspicious now. He forced a calm smile. "Understood, sir." The soldiers disappeared among the ruins. Every second that passed was agony. He could see it. Lyra hiding in the shadows, clutching her sister, holding her breath as boots crunched above her head. Then a voice shouted from the ruins. "Sir, we've got movement." Kane's blood went cold. He started running before he could think. By the time he reached the spot, the soldiers had gathered near a collapsed vent shaft. Inside, he saw a shape, small, moving. The lead soldier pointed his rifle. "Whatever it is, it's breathing." Kane's hand moved fast. "Wait," he shouted, pushing the rifle down. "That's mine." The soldier blinked. "Yours?" Kane forced a laugh. "Supply drone. Crashed last night. I was trying to fix the core heat regulator. It still gives faint signatures." The soldier frowned, scanning the vent with his handheld monitor. The readings blinked erratically, thanks to the small metal plate Kane had planted earlier to mask heat signatures. After a long moment, the soldier lowered his weapon. "Fine. Next time, report sooner." Kane nodded, hiding his shaking hands. When the patrol finally left, the air felt lighter, but only barely. Kane returned to the ruins, heart pounding. He pushed aside the debris and slipped into the factory's basement. Lyra was there, curled around her sister, eyes wide with terror. "It's all right," Kane whispered. "They're gone." She stared at him in disbelief. "You lied. To your own people," he sighed. "I told you before. Wars don't end when the shooting stops. They end when someone decides not to obey stupid orders." Her lips trembled. "They will come again." He nodded. "Then we move tonight." Lyra looked down at her baby sister, then back at the human who had just defied his command for them. Something deep inside her changed. She had grown up hearing that humans were monsters, cold, cruel, merciless. But this one had just risked everything to protect two dying alien children. For the first time, she whispered his name softly. "Kane?" He looked up, surprised. "Thank you." He didn't answer. He just adjusted his rifle and stared out the cracked window toward the fading sun, where the dust glowed like fire, because he knew the next warning wouldn't just come from his commander, it would come from the sky itself. The night fell again, silent but heavy. The stars were hidden behind clouds of ash, and the air felt like cold sand scraping against skin. Inside the ruined factory, only the faint glow of Kane's flashlight touched the darkness. Lyra sat near the wall, holding her baby sister close. The baby's skin, once pale silver, now burned with fever. Sweat covered her tiny forehead. Her breathing came in quick, shallow gasps. "Kane," Lyra whispered, fear trembling in her voice. "She's burning. She won't wake up." Kane rushed over. He knelt, touched the baby's neck. It was scorching hot. He could feel her weak heartbeat fluttering under fragile skin. "She's got an infection," he said softly. "Maybe from the dust, maybe from hunger." Lyra looked up, her eyes wide and desperate. "You can fix her, right? You are a soldier. You have medicine." Kane's jaw tightened. He looked away. "Not enough," he said. "Command took most of the medical packs last month. I only have bandages and painkillers." Lyra's voice broke. "She'll die." Kane stared at the baby's small hands, trembling slightly. He had seen soldiers die, enemies die, but the sight of a child slipping away felt worse than all the battles he'd ever fought. "No," he said suddenly, standing up. "I won't let that happen." He grabbed his helmet and rifle. "Stay here. Don't make a sound. I'll get what she needs." Lyra blinked. "Where will you go?" "Army outpost," Kane said, already checking his weapon. "They store med pods for wounded soldiers." "I'll steal one." Her mouth fell open. "If they catch you." "They won't," he said, his voice hard now. "Lock the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone but me." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She clutched her sister tighter as the human soldier disappeared into the night. The ruins outside were cold and endless. Kane moved like a shadow through the broken streets, every step echoing faintly in the wind. He knew where the outpost was, 2 kilometers east, guarded by drones and motion sensors. He moved low, using debris for cover. His heart beat steady. This wasn't a mission for glory or orders. It was something deeper, something human. When he reached the outpost, he saw the flicker of blue lights and the metallic shimmer of guard drones circling above. The building was intact, power lines still alive, humming faintly in the dark. He found a side vent half buried under rubble and crawled through. Inside, the air was sharp with disinfectant and oil. Rows of medical pods lined the hall, white, clean, untouched by war. Each one held advanced nanomed kits for soldiers only. He broke the lock on one crate and pulled out a small injector marked with a red cross. Bio-nano serum. Human use only. He hesitated. It might not even work on alien biology, but it was her only chance. He pocketed it and turned to leave. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights exploded across the corridor. The drones whirred to life, weapons locking on him. Kane sprinted, diving behind a steel crate as lasers sliced through the air. One hit his shoulder armor, melting part of it. He ignored the pain. He smashed the emergency door release and rolled outside just as the drones fired again. The night swallowed him, smoke and sparks behind. He ran through the ruins, lungs burning, boots crunching on broken glass. By the time he reached the factory again, blood ran down his arm. He pushed through the metal door, gasping. "Lyra!" She rushed to him. "You're hurt." He waved her off. "Not important. Give me the baby." He knelt, activating the injector. "Please work," he whispered. Then he pressed it gently into the baby's small arm. The light on the injector blinked green once, then went still. For a moment, nothing happened. The baby's breathing stayed shallow. Lyra started to cry silently, her tears dropping onto her sister's face. Then slowly the child exhaled. Her breathing steadied. The fevered glow on her skin faded to soft silver again. Lyra froze, staring in disbelief. She's better." Kane leaned back, his whole body trembling with relief. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She's strong." Lyra looked at him, her voice shaking. "You saved her again." Kane smiled faintly. "Don't thank me yet. That serum leaves a signature. Command will know it was used outside the outpost." Lyra frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said grimly, "they'll come looking for whoever stole it." He stood, checking his weapon. We moved before dawn. Later, when the baby finally slept peacefully, Lyra sat beside Kane by the broken window. Moonlight leaked through the smoke outside. "You could have run away," she said softly. "But you came back." He didn't answer right away. He just watched the moonlight reflecting on her eyes. "Someone once told me," he said, "that being human means doing the right thing even when no one sees." Lyra whispered, "My people said humans have no hearts." He gave a tired smile. "Maybe they were right. Maybe mine stopped beating a long time ago." Lyra shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "It beats still. I can hear it." Kane looked away, his throat tight. Outside, a drone passed overhead, scanning the ruins. He knew they'd find traces of his theft soon, but he didn't care. The baby was alive, and in a world built on death, saving one small life felt like a rebellion worth dying for. The morning came with thunder, not from the sky, but from engines. Kane woke to the sound of rotor blades slicing the air. A patrol craft was passing above the ruins, searchlights sweeping across the city. He cursed under his breath. The signature from the stolen med pod. They had traced it. Lyra was already awake, clutching her baby. Her wide eyes asked the question before her lips could move. "They found us," Kane said quietly. He moved fast, grabbing his rifle and the few supplies they had left. "We have to go now." Through the tunnels. The girl's hand shook as she wrapped the blanket around her sister. The baby whimpered softly. Kane paused for a moment, looking at her. So small, so fragile, yet holding on to life harder than most soldiers he had known. They slipped out through a broken back door and into the underground service tunnels. The air was damp, heavy with rust and old smoke. Water dripped from pipes above as their footsteps echoed. Kane led them through the dark, his flashlight dimmed to avoid attention. "Keep quiet," he whispered. "We're close to the old metro line. It leads out of the patrol zone." But fate was cruel. A metal voice rang out from above the tunnel. "Sergeant Kane, you are under arrest for violation of interspecies law." Kane froze. His flashlight flickered once, then went out. A blinding white beam burst from the tunnel entrance. Drones hovered in a line, their guns trained on him. Behind them stood soldiers in full armor, his own unit. Captain Rourke stepped forward. His face, visible behind his glass visor, was carved in stone. "Drop the weapon, Sergeant." Kane didn't move. His rifle was still slung across his chest. "Captain," he said, his voice steady. "There's a child here. A baby. She's sick. Let me take her to the outer camps." Rourke's eyes hardened. "You disobeyed direct orders. You stole military medicine. You lied to command." He took a step closer. "You helped the enemy." "She's not the enemy," Kane said quietly. "She's just a child. That doesn't matter." Rourke barked. His soldiers raised their rifles. "You know what happens to those who betray Earth's command." Lyra clung to Kane's arm, trembling. "Please," she whispered, "don't let them take you." Kane smiled faintly, though his heart was heavy. "Stay behind me," he said. One of the soldiers stepped forward, shouting, "On the ground now!" Kane slowly raised his hands, but his eyes never left Rourke's. "Captain," he said, "when did we forget who we were?" Rourke's jaw tightened. "When they burned our cities. When they killed our families. And we killed theirs," Kane shot back. "But tell me, does killing children bring them back?" The silence after his words was long and sharp. Even the drones seemed to hesitate. Rourke finally sighed. "You always were too soft, Kane." He gave the order. "Take him." 2 soldiers moved in. Kane didn't fight. He lowered his rifle and knelt. They bound his wrists with magnetic cuffs. As they pulled him to his feet, Lyra cried out, "No!" "Please, he saved us." One soldier pointed a weapon at her. "Quiet, alien." Kane stepped between them, his arms still restrained. "Don't touch her," he said coldly. "Still protecting them," Rourke muttered. "You're done, Sergeant. Exile colony for life." They dragged him out of the tunnel into the gray daylight. Lyra tried to follow, but a soldier pushed her back. "Stay down," he barked. Kane turned once, meeting her eyes through the dust and wind. "Don't cry," he said softly. "You'll survive. That's how you thank me." The baby in her arms began to cry, the sound echoing through the broken street as the patrol ship's engines roared to life. Kane was pushed aboard. The doors slammed shut. Hours later, in a steel cell aboard the transport, Kane sat staring at the floor. His wrists ached from the cuffs. Outside, stars drifted past the small window, cold, distant, uncaring. Rourke entered, his armor still dusty. "You had potential," he said quietly. "A good soldier. Why throw it away for them?" Kane looked up. "Because I remembered what the word human used to mean." Rourke's expression darkened. "They'll use you as an example," he said. "A warning to others who forget loyalty." Kane gave a tired smile. "Then I hope they remember my face, at least." Rourke stared at him for a moment longer, then turned to leave. But just before the door closed, he said, "We'll be leaving you on EOS 9. No return transport. No supplies. Pray the storms there finish you quick." Kane didn't reply. He leaned his head back against the cold wall, listening to the hum of the engines. Somewhere, deep inside, a small voice whispered that it was worth it. Worth every risk, every lie, every punishment, because 2 children were still alive, and maybe, just maybe, that meant there was still hope for humanity. Back in the ruins, Lyra watched the ship vanish into the clouds. She held her baby sister tight, tears running down her cheeks. She whispered to the sky, "You said the stars listen. Then please, tell them his name." The wind carried her words upward, through the dust, toward the silent stars that shimmered faintly, as if in answer. Years passed, and the war became a story people told to children who didn't believe in monsters anymore. But for Lyra, the silence after the war was its own kind of battlefield. She grew up under red skies on Alaris 4, a refugee planet orbiting a dying sun. The camps there stretched for miles, thousands of alien survivors living in metal shacks waiting for help that never came. The air smelled of oil and dust, and the nights were always cold. Lyra worked in the repair docks, fixing old human machines that her people scavenged. Her hands had grown strong, but her heart carried the same ache she'd felt as a child, the memory of a human soldier who had saved her and her sister, and then vanished into the sky. Sometimes she dreamed of him, his tired eyes. His voice sang, "Stay alive." Each morning, she woke with that echo in her mind and whispered the same 2 words to herself. Her baby sister, Mira, grew fast. The nanomed serum Kane had used saved her life, but left a strange mark. Faint, glowing veins across her arms that pulsed softly when she was scared or excited. The other refugees whispered that she carried human fire in her blood. Mira didn't understand what that meant. But Lyra did. It was a reminder, proof of what one act of kindness could change. One evening, as the twin moons rose, a transport ship landed near the camp. The banner on its hull read, "Human Reconstruction Corps." It had been years since Lyra had seen anything with human markings. She stood among the crowd as uniformed officers stepped out. A tall woman with silver-gray hair shouted, "We seek volunteers for cross-species rebuilding. Food, education, and citizenship for anyone willing to work." The crowd erupted with murmurs. Some shouted curses, others whispered prayers. Lyra looked at her sister. "This is what he would have wanted," she said quietly. Mira frowned. "You mean the human?" Lyra nodded. "He didn't save us so we could hide forever." That night, She signed her name on the volunteer list. The years that followed changed everything. Lyra was sent to a mixed research base on the border of human space, a small colony orbiting a shattered moon. There, humans and aliens worked side by side for the first time in decades. She learned human science, human language, and the strange human humor she never quite understood but secretly liked. Her mechanical skills impressed the engineers, and soon she was designing power cores and fixing drones. She even started teaching younger aliens how to handle human tech without fear. But every time she saw the Earth emblem, that small blue circle with white lines, something inside her twisted. It reminded her of the man who wore it proudly on his uniform. Sometimes she stared out the station window, watching distant stars blink like cold fires. She wondered which one was his exile world. Was he alive? Had he forgiven himself for saving her? 10 years after she joined the program, Lyra became one of the lead engineers on the Reconciliation Fleet, a project to explore forgotten war zones and bring survivors home. She felt proud, but also restless. One night, while checking the scanners, she noticed a strange signal pulsing from deep space, an old frequency, faint and broken. Her assistant said it was just static, but Lyra froze. She recognized it. It was an Earth military code, outdated by decades. And buried in the signal pattern was something more, a number she would never forget. Unit 73A, Kane's old patrol designation. Her hands trembled. "Run the trace," she whispered. The computer word then displayed a single name, EOS 9. Her heart stopped. That was the exile world Rourke had sent him to, a planet where no one was supposed to survive. She stared at the screen. The signal was weak, repeating every few minutes like a heartbeat refusing to die. She whispered, "He's alive." Mira, now grown and working in the same fleet, looked at her sister with wide eyes. "You can't be sure," Lyra smiled faintly. "I don't need to be sure. I just need to go." The next morning, she filed a mission report for a salvage operation. The council rejected it immediately. EOS 9 is off limits, they said. Radiation storms. No survivors. But Lyra had learned something from Kane long ago. Sometimes the rules were wrong. That night, she stole a small research shuttle, loaded it with supplies, and set a course toward the forbidden coordinates. The stars stretched before her like a silver road. As the engines roared to life, Mira's voice came through the comms. "You'll be court-martialed for this, Lyra." Lyra smiled through her tears. "Then I guess I'm finally human enough." The ship broke through the dark, and the silence of space swallowed her. For the first time in years, she felt alive, because the quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting for her to find the man who had once defied the world to save her, the man whose kindness had survived longer than any war. The planet EOS 9 was a graveyard made of stone and wind. Its red storms screamed across endless canyons and lightning danced on black mountains that hadn't seen a sunrise in decades. Through that storm, a small shuttle cut the sky like a silver arrow. Inside it, Lyra gripped the controls, eyes burning with determination. The distress signal had been repeating for 6 days. Faint, broken, but steady, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Signal strength rising, the ship's AI said softly. Approximate source 10 kilometers ahead. Her own heartbeat quickened. 10 kilometers. After all these years, after every scar and memory, she was finally close. "Prepare for landing," she whispered. The shuttle descended through smoke and ash, shaking violently. When the storm cleared for a second, she saw it, a small metallic shelter half buried in rock. Its beacon pulsed weakly, flashing the old Earth distress code, SOS, human survivor. Lyra's throat tightened. "He's here." The wind howled as she stepped out in her worn flight suit. Her boots sank into red dust. She fought against the storm, each step heavy, her eyes fixed on the flickering beacon. The shelter's door was jammed. She used her plasma cutter to slice through the rusted edges. The moment the door hissed open, stale air spilled out, dry and cold. She stepped inside. The light flickered weakly from a cracked power cell. There were empty food packs, old military armor, and on the far side, someone sitting by a dying heater. A man. He was older now. His hair gray, beard rough, eyes dim, but when he looked up and saw her, time stopped. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then slowly, the corners of his lips lifted. "You grew up," he said, his voice hoarse. Lyra's heart nearly broke. "Kane." She ran to him and knelt beside his chair. His skin was pale, his breathing shallow. His left arm was wrapped in torn bandages. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured weakly. "This planet's cursed." She shook her head, tears already falling. "You said to stay alive, I did. And I found you." Kane gave a soft laugh that turned into a cough. "You were supposed to live your life, not come chasing old ghosts." Lyra reached for his hand. It was cold, calloused, trembling. "You're not a ghost," she whispered. "You're the reason I'm alive." She opened her pack and pulled out a small med kit. "I can treat you," she said quickly. "We'll get you out of here." "There's a ship waiting." He shook his head. "No ships leave this place without dying in the storms." "I tried that many times." Lyra refused to listen. "You survived alone for all these years. You can survive a few more minutes while I fix this." Kane watched her with quiet eyes as she worked. "You sound just like I did," he said softly. "Stubborn, foolish, human." Lyra smiled faintly through her tears. "I learned from the best." As she wrapped his arm, her gaze fell on a small data pad beside the heater. Its screen glowed faintly, showing old transmission logs, hundreds of them. "What's this?" she asked. "Messages," Kane said. "I kept sending them to command. Reports, locations, survivor data. I found others here once, aliens, humans. I tried to save them too. Some made it off. Most didn't." Lyra touched the screen gently. "You did all this." "For them?" He nodded weakly. "If they call me traitor, so be it. I was human." "That's enough." Her chest tightened. "They will hear this," she said fiercely. "Everyone will." "I'll send your voice across every channel." Kane smiled faintly. "You always had fire in you." He looked past her at the flickering light. "When I first saw you in that ruin holding your sister, I thought saving you would be my last good act. I never thought you'd become this." Lyra's tears fell onto his hand. "You gave me hope," she whispered. "You showed me what kindness means." He smiled softly. "Then maybe the stars won't forget us after all." The heater flickered out. The air grew colder. Kane's breathing slowed, his eyes half closed. "Don't go," Lyra whispered, clutching his hand. "Please, we can still make it." He looked at her, and for the first time in years, his eyes were at peace. "I already made it," he said gently. "You lived." A long silence followed. The storm outside softened. The red light of the beacon blinked one last time and then went still. Lyra stayed beside him, holding his hand until dawn broke through the dust. The sky turned faintly gold, the first sunrise EOS-9 had seen in decades. Weeks later, her ship left orbit. From the window, Lyra looked down at the planet that had taken so much and yet given back everything. Kane's messages were now transmitted through the fleet. His voice echoed across both human and alien worlds. "If you ever doubt what you are, remember this. Being human isn't about blood, or borders, or orders. It's about mercy. It's about saving one life, even when the world tells you not to." The broadcast spread faster than anyone expected. Across the stars, soldiers listened. Refugees wept. Enemies lowered their weapons. And for the first time since the war, both humans and aliens shared the same silence, a silence filled with understanding. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered, "The stars heard you, Kane." Outside, through the endless dark, the constellations shimmered brighter than before, like tears frozen in space, reflecting the light of a single impossible act of kindness, the act that broke the stars and rebuilt what it meant to be human.